A jet slices through the upper atmosphere, a gleaming arrow above a sleeping world. Inside its cockpit, two pilots sit beneath the glow of 100 instruments, their voices calm, methodical, rehearsed. They are the last line of defense between order and chaos, precision and disaster. Every second, every switch, every word matters. In the skies, mistakes do not forgive. Flying is one of humanity's greatest achievements. A metal machine weighing hundreds of tons soaring gracefully at 37,000 feet. But it is also a delicate balance of physics, engineering, and human trust. When that balance fails, even for a moment, tragedy can unfold in the most unimaginable ways. The cockpit is both sanctuary and battlefield, a place where training meets fear, where logic battles instinct, and where the line between control and catastrophe can vanish in a heartbeat. Consider a quiet night in August 1997. Korean Air Flight 801 approaches Guam after a long flight from Seoul. Rain lashes the windshield. The runway lights are hidden by cloud. The captain, exhausted, presses forward with the approach. The first officer, hesitant to challenge him, follows protocol in silence. The ground proximity warning sounds, a mechanical voice urging, "Pull up! Pull up!" Seconds later, the aircraft disappears into a hillside. 228 lives are gone. The jet was mechanically sound. The weather, while rough, was manageable. The cause lay in the invisible currents of human behavior, fatigue, deference, and miscommunication. Inside the cockpit, authority can save or destroy. Pilots are trained to follow command, but aviation has learned again and again that hierarchy must never silence doubt. The authority gradient, as psychologists call it, is steep in some cultures. When a junior pilot hesitates to question a captain, a warning may die in the air before it's spoken. Modern training now emphasizes assertive communication, the courage to speak up, even to challenge when something feels wrong. Lives depend on it. Technology, too, carries its own paradox. The more sophisticated it becomes, the more pilots must trust systems they do not fully see. On June 1, 2009, Air France Flight 447 crossed the Atlantic under a canopy of stars. The Airbus A330 cruised smoothly, its autopilot managing altitude and direction. Then, high above a line of storms, ice crystals clogged the aircraft's pitot tubes, the sensors that measure airspeed. The autopilot disconnected. Warning chimes erupted. The pilots, startled awake from routine, faced a flood of conflicting information. In the darkness, with no visible horizon, they lost sense of which way was up. For 4 agonizing minutes, they fought the aircraft, pulling its nose higher, believing they were climbing when they were in fact falling. The stall alarm blared. The captain shouted orders, but confusion ruled. When the ocean rose to meet them, the jet was intact, its engines running. The tragedy was not mechanical, it was cognitive. Automation had lulled the crew into complacency, and when the system failed, their understanding of flight, the feel of lift, the intuition of control, slipped away. In modern aviation, automation is both guardian and trap. It prevents error but also breeds dependency. Pilots are trained to monitor computers, not to wrestle with the raw physics of flight. When the computers go silent, many find themselves unprepared to fly the aircraft by hand in turbulent skies. The irony of safety is that the safer flying becomes, the less often pilots confront danger, and the less practiced they are when it comes. In simulator rooms around the world, instructors create chaos, fires, engine failures, rapid decompressions, all designed to train reaction into instinct. Pilots memorize checklists, procedures, call-outs. Yet no simulator can truly replicate the human startle response. The split second of paralysis when alarms explode, when the brain, overwhelmed, cannot yet decide what's real. The startle effect, as investigators call it, costs precious seconds, and in flight, seconds can mean everything. But the cockpit is not isolated. Behind every flight lies an entire network. Engineers, dispatchers, air traffic controllers, weather analysts. The chain of safety depends on them all. When that chain weakens at multiple points, disaster strikes. On a winter night in February 2009, Colgan Air Flight 3407 approached Buffalo in light snow. The aircraft slowed as it neared the runway. A warning shook the controls, the stick shaker signaling an imminent stall. The correct response was simple. Lower the nose, add power. Instead, the captain, startled, pulled back. The plane pitched upward, stalled completely, and fell from the sky, striking a house below. 50 people were gone. Investigators found no single fault. The pilots were fatigued from long days of commuting, their training incomplete, their pay low. Each link in the safety chain had been stretched thin until one small error snapped it. In aviation, every accident is the result of multiple failures aligning perfectly in time. Every time a plane crashes, investigators rebuild not only the aircraft but the story behind it. The black boxes, the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder are sacred artifacts. They capture the final minutes in beeps, pressure readings, and human voices. Investigators listen not for blame but for understanding. A checklist skipped, a phrase misheard, a silence that should have been a warning. And with every crash, aviation learns. New rules are written, equipment redesigned, training refined. Today's safety systems are built on the ashes of past mistakes. When a pilot flips a switch, follows a checklist, or calls out stabilized approach, they are honoring the memory of those who came before, the crews who faced chaos so others might not. Yet even the most advanced systems cannot erase human emotion. Pilots are trained to remain calm, to sound unshaken even as alarms blare, but fear is always present. Inside the cockpit, the mind races, time dilates, routine becomes survival. Imagine a flight at night, over the Pacific. The cabin is dark, passengers asleep. Suddenly, a warning chime, a red light. A system failure message scrolls across the screen. The captain's hand freezes for a heartbeat, that small, invisible pause where the human brain catches up to danger. Then training takes over. The voice steadies. Checklist. The co-pilot responds. Confirmed. Fingers move across switches. The machine obeys. Calm returns. Manufactured through discipline. The discipline of aviation is built on humility, the understanding that perfection is impossible. Every pilot is taught to expect error, to anticipate the worst. That mindset, paradoxically, is what makes flying so safe. In 2025, a person could fly every single day for 27,000 years before facing a fatal accident. It is, statistically, the safest form of transportation ever created. But that safety is fragile, dependent on constant vigilance, relentless training, and unyielding honesty about failure. Weather remains an eternal adversary. The atmosphere hides turbulence, wind shear, and storms that radar cannot always reveal. Pilots read the sky like doctors read a pulse, a slight bump, a temperature drop, a patch of green turning to yellow on the radar screen. Let's divert 10 miles left, one says. The passengers never know that this small, quiet decision might be what saves them. For every accident that makes headlines, there are thousands of near misses that never do. Moments when a warning light flickers, a controller's voice cuts through the static, or a pilot's intuition sparks just in time. The system works because humans, flawed and imperfect, catch one another's mistakes. Still, there are moments when even the best training cannot prevent fate. Mechanical parts can fail. Birds can strike engines. Runways can turn into rivers of fog. The margin between control and catastrophe is sometimes measured in inches, in seconds, in breaths. And yet, against all odds, flight endures. Inside the cockpit, pilots talk quietly through the night. They discuss weather, routes, small details of life. Beneath the calm, their minds remain in motion, scanning, cross-checking, always aware. They know the history written in every button, the tragedies that taught their procedures. They know that comfort is earned through caution. When turbulence hits, passengers feel fear. Pilots feel focus. Their world shrinks to numbers: altitude, attitude, airspeed. 3 parameters that define everything. Keep those steady, and the sky remains a friend. Lose one, and the horizon disappears. In the aftermath of every crash, the families ask why. The answers are rarely simple. Sometimes it's ice on a sensor. Sometimes it's a missed radio call. Sometimes it's just human exhaustion. But deeper than the cause is the lesson: that perfection in aviation is not the absence of error, but the mastery of response. Every pilot carries those lessons silently. When they taxi to the runway, they recite checklists whose words were written in the aftermath of disaster. When they brief an approach, they mention wind shear alerts, GPWS systems, stall recovery techniques, all born from loss. Each switch and sound inside the cockpit is a memorial to someone who once faced the unimaginable. And still, they fly. Because flying, at its core, is an act of faith in machines, in colleagues, in oneself. It is trust elevated to an art form. The sun rises over the horizon. The cockpit fills with light. The autopilot hums softly, steady and precise. For a moment, everything is quiet. Below, the world turns slowly, cities waking, oceans glittering. The pilots sip their coffee, scanning instruments. Calm, alert. To the passengers, it's just another flight. To the pilots, it is a constant dance with gravity, discipline, and destiny. When planes crash, it's easy to see only the wreckage, twisted metal, broken dreams. But inside that story lies a deeper truth, that every tragedy pushes aviation forward, reshaping how humans and machines coexist. The cockpit is no longer a place of mystery, but of transparency. Pilots train not to be perfect, but to be prepared for imperfection. And maybe that is the real reason planes crash, not because humans fail, but because humans are human. And the miracle is that despite this, millions of flights reach their destinations safely every single year. The engines drone on. The horizon stretches forever. And inside the cockpit, where past and future meet, 2 pilots keep their hands steady, their eyes clear, their trust unbroken. Because up here, above the clouds, there is no room for arrogance, only respect. For the sky, for the machine, for the lessons written in loss. And that respect, more than anything else, is what keeps us flying.